Now, having seen all three things Tom Hanks did in 2022, this is the best one. This is a man called Otto. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, why don't you go ahead and do that? I'll wait. I won't wait. I'm going to keep going. Um, I watch and review films that have audio description, or sometimes that don't have audio description, and then complain about them. But this does have audio description. It's on Netflix. And I am super freaking happy that this has audio description on Netflix, because when this was on VOD, one of the reasons I didn't rent it was because it didn't have audio description. And I was like, I'll play that wait and see game. I'll see what happens. Like, what happens when it goes? Is it going to have it when it's on a streaming service? And lo and behold, here it is with audio description. Granted, I had to wait until May, so luckily, I don't think I would have predicted this for an Oscar anyways. Would have been nice to be able to see this actually during Oscar season, but yeah, it's a good film, and I actually kind of believe that had this film not waited until it waited till, which was like mid-January, to kind of try to pop into the race, I think it might have had a better shot at Oscar consideration for its cast. Tom Hanks is quite good in this, especially compared to the other roles he was, which was, I don't know, covered in wax for Elvis and sad Geppetto in Pinocchio. I mean, just those are his roles. So he's grumpy here, but it's such a well written role. The script is so much better for this. This is directed by Mark Forster, who directed Finding Neverland. So if you want like a really cool blast from the past, that's the thing that I always associate with for him, because I really like that film. So this is an adaptation of a film that did actually pretty well for a foreign language title, A Man Called Ove. Which is also based on a book by the same title, and we just Americanized it and made it so that you don't need to read subtitles, but also Americanized it so it just has a little bit more of that vibe. I have no idea what the changes were that were made to it, but I like the story. It's just about a man who is presented from the very top as being grumpy. He's a grump, a grumpity grump, and he has reasons for being that way. His wife passed away, and as we see from the beginning, he's clearly intending on killing himself. That's the plot of the film. But as the film unfolds, we start to learn more about him and his backstory with his wife, and how all of that sort of transpired, this great love story. And also this neighborhood, because he does kind of walk around and keep everything together. There's a real estate developer that's trying to encroach and buy out the property, and they're kind of being super obnoxious about it. And Hanks's Otto is trying to keep everything the way that it is. You could say he doesn't like change, but this film actually kind of makes you feel like change is not good. In a way, it kind of does a good job of making you see Otto's point of view. So it works that way. Meanwhile, probably due in large part to the fact that every time that you see the guy that represents the real estate company, he's just a giant douchebag. I mean, like, in no scene is he ever represented as anything other than just an asshat. The dude always rolls up in like some giant vehicle listening to loud ass music, and I'm like, this guy is a real estate agent. Every real estate agent I know, always has to try to present themselves in like the kindest light possible, like they're part of the community, like they're here to help. everybody that I know is always trying to best foot forward type of thing. This guy just does not care. So yeah, just super douchey. One day he gets some new neighbors, and in the form of this family, led by Marisol, who's the matriarch of this family. But I mean, like, if you read the plot description, it sounds like Marisol stops him and changes his life, but it's kind of like her whole family. In addition to some other characters, he also interacts with Malcolm. He finds when he actually stops to talk to Malcolm, Malcolm gives him sort of a great story and a great reason for just sort of opening up, and him being like, oh, so I'm not going to be mean to you anymore. With sort of a connection that he didn't know that he had. He's got neighbors, and they all sort of work together in interesting ways. Some of the lines were great. I loved a little bit of it. Just there's one scene where one of his neighbors is complaining about the neighborhood cat. She said something like, "It's probably full of disease," and he's like, "You're probably full of disease, but I don't something you." It's just like says it right back to her. It's just kind of like quick. His little retorts to things, because he's just so grumpy, are actually kind of hilarious. It's kind of a morose film, because there's this morbidity that hangs over it, because he is kind of constantly trying to find a new way to kill himself. Because it seems like every time he tries something, it kind of gets thwarted one way or another. So you're watching this guy continuously try to kill himself, like, throughout the film. I'm not going to say it's like the happiest film in the world, and if you have like trigger warning problems, then this would not be the film for you in that regard. But it also has a lot of like heartwarming moments too. Not everything worked for me. I couldn't figure out how much time this actually spans over, and it was due to the passage of time and just in like the audio description, like there wasn't snow and then there's snow, and how long, like, when did Marisol move in? How long have they been there? Has it really been only 6 days, or are we just expanding the length of time? And this is in regard directly to, at the beginning of the film, because he's planning on killing himself, he shuts everything off. Like, he's very stingy when it comes to his money, and like right down to the penny. So he shuts off his phone, his electricity, and his gas and everything. And there's a line where he finds out that he can't shut off his gas until like the end of a cycle or whatever. So he says something like he's like, well, I'm the type of guy that's, if I'm gonna pay for 6 days of gas, I'm gonna use 6 days of gas, which I guess to me says that he's gonna be alive for 6 more days. But there's a scene sort of deep into the film where, I don't want to spoil it, so I'll just say a character happens to be at his house, and he notices the power is off, and he's already given sort of like a reason for the power being off that was not the actual reason. And the person's making eggs in the morning, and they're like, hey, I'm making, I found some eggs in the fridge, and I didn't want them to go bad while the power was off. And I wanted to be like, if that's the concern, then those eggs are already bad, because the power's been off for a while. if he left some eggs in the fridge and the concern is you're worried that they have turned, y'all are eating some bad eggs. Because at this point in the film, yeah, it should have been. But then he's sitting there with the stove and the gas is on and it works. And I just don't understand because I'm like, is this still within the 6 days? Are we? Is it possible? Did all of this happen? That's a lot. This has been a busy 6 days. Like this has been a truly busy 6 days. Yeah, so it's it does kind of feel a little bit at times like they didn't quite think something out. But there are a couple of those moments, but that was the big one for me. Was it made me think about the passage of time and like how long we'd been here, because earlier on he made a direct comment to how many days worth of gas he had left, and then there was still gas, and I was like, wait a minute, is it still within 6 days? I guess if it's within 6 days and the eggs maybe are fine, but if it's not, it feels like it's been longer than that. So I feel like now there's snow on the ground and he's been shoveling and we keep seeing him going out, and I feel like more than 6 days passed. I don't know. It's very weird. So I'm not gonna say it's a perfect film, but I will say that I liked it a lot, and I was moved by the story that it had to tell, and the little moments. It has a lot of little moments that are really just great little moments. I think this is a lot better than people necessarily thought it was going to be, and why it got kind of buried in January and you haven't really heard too much about it. It actually did pretty decently at the box office compared to a lot of other Oscar titles. This did pretty well. So, audio description here is British. So, yeah, Netflix chose to keep the British version of this film. So just remember that, and it does come into play quite a bit when talking about certain things. You're gonna hear torch and jumper and radiator, but not with. The thing about radiator that threw me off was the fact that at one point it's used to describe a radiator like within somebody's house, which makes me think, okay, so there are actual radiators in people's homes. That's fine. But then he also, the narrator, female, sorry, she also uses narrator within the context of inside of a car, which Americans would not call that the radiator. So that threw me, because those are two totally different objects that function in two different ways. Your AC/heater in your car is not the same as what a radiator would be. So I don't even know if the thing that was in the apartment was the same thing as the thing in the car. I don't even know. I'm lost. So sometimes with British audio description, just the choice of words can throw me a little bit on that. So, but it's only with certain terms. It's only on a couple of word swaps, and the rest of the time it's actually really excellent audio description. There's a lot of facial features being described. A lot of there's, he eats a cookie and his eyebrows raise. The character descriptions with regards to what they're wearing is usually pretty solid. About like taking on and off jackets, anything that they can. There's a character that has crutches most of the time. So it tries to do stuff with that. It focuses on clothing that is important. There's a pink jacket that's somewhat important to the plot of the story. And I would say probably the one thing it focused the least on would be the landscape, like the neighborhood. I didn't quite fully grasp how this layout worked for the neighborhood, for this little area where Otto lives that he kind of keeps in control, that he used to be the head of the HOA when they had an HOA. And yeah, I didn't quite process necessarily the layout of what that is. So the other stuff is pretty solid. I felt like I got a decent amount of description about what people look like and their reactions to things, but as far as the landscape, other than knowing that there's snow on the ground and it's being shoveled, in certain places, I don't know what these people's homes necessarily look like or anything like that. So, that is that. I think you'll like the film, and I like the film. So let's do this thing. I'm going to give A Man Called Otto an A-. I think it's definitely one of the better films from last year. So I hope you enjoy it. It's on Netflix. Check it out. Be ready for some British audio description. It's good audio description. It's just British. And please click that subscribe button. You can also follow me on Instagram or Twitter at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acba.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And you can look up your favorite TV shows and films and see who's narrating them. That's it for me today. I will watch something else and review it and see you guys on the other side.